So most multifamily deals are claiming value add these days. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna walk you through exactly where $10 to $12 million of value add is created on a recent deal that we've been working on called Hathaway at Willow Bend. So let's start off with the basics. How do you create value with a multifamily project? Well, value equals your NOI divided by your cap rate. And if you're not super familiar with multifamily, you might be asking yourself, what does a cap rate mean? Well, a cap rate is essentially the return that you would get if you bought a property all cash. So if you buy a property all cash, let's just say a 100-unit property, and you bought at a 5 cap, that means that you would be getting a 5% return on your money. And that's how multifamily is valued, by the cap rate and by the NOI, the net operating income, which is the income minus the expenses. So let's do a quick example here. If you have a $1 increase in NOI, your net operating income, so you've increased your NOI by $1, what does that mean in value? So if you take that $1 and you divide it by the cap rate, which in this case we're gonna use a 5% cap rate, so you're dividing by 0.05, what you get is you get $20 in additional value that you've just created for this property. So you can see how that snowballs so quickly and how forced appreciation, which is what this is called, is so powerful. Now let's add a few more zeros. Let's just use a large number, $1 million in additional NOI. Maybe that's over a 5-year period, maybe it's over a 10-year period. What does that equate to? If you divide that by 0.05%, what that equals is $20 million of value that you've just created by increasing the NOI by $1 million. So again, a very powerful way to force appreciation is by increasing your NOI. Another part of our value add plan is to convert 62 one-bedroom with a den units to 62 two-bedroom units. And what that's going to allow us to do is increase the rents by about $200, which matches up to the competitors in the market. So let's take a look at this example. We have 62 units. We have a $200 rental premium for those units when we convert them to two-bedroom units. And then we have 12 months. So if we take the 62 times the 1,200, we get $12,400. And then if we multiply that by 12, we get $148,800 of additional NOI per year. Right there. And what does that do to our value? You take $148,800, we're gonna divide that by a 5 cap for this example, and that equals $2.976 million in additional value that we've just created by converting 62 units. And what we're doing in those 62 units is we're simply putting in a French door to convert them to two-bedroom units. So a very simple value add strategy to create a massive amount of value on this property. All right, so let's run through a quick deal snapshot. So we have 229 units at Hathaway at Willow Bend. The average rent right now is $14.78 per month. Now our pro forma rent, which is what we're looking to achieve after we take over the property, which has already been proven out by the competitor properties in the submarket, is $16.43 per month. So we have a $165 delta in between what's being achieved right now and what we're looking to achieve on this property. So let's do a quick example here. We have $165 of additional rent that we're going to achieve. Some of these units need to be renovated. Some of them have already been renovated, but their rents are just lower than what the market is affording right now, so we're able to push those up to market. We have 229 units total, and then what you also have to take into consideration is that we have 12 months out of the year. So you times 165 by 229 units by 12 months. And what that equates out to be is approximately $453,000, $420. So 453, 420. And so that's your additional NOI that you're bringing in per year. Now let's take a step back and calculate what the increased value is. So we would take the $453,420 and we would divide that by the market cap rate. Again, the cap rate is essentially what you would be looking to achieve on your investment if you bought the property all cash. So we're going to use an approximate market cap rate of 5%, which is 0.05. We're going to divide $453,420 by that 5 cap, And the value that we've just increased the property by is approximately $9,068,000. So here you've renovated 229 units, you've bumped the rents by $165, and you've just created $9 million of additional value. So that is the true power of forced appreciation right there. Another value add strategy that we're going to be implementing is charging for the covered parking spots. So the beautiful thing about this value add is we already have 150 covered parking spots at location that have already been built out. The current owners are just not charging for those covered parking spots. Now we went out and we've shopped the comps, and we found out that the bulk amount of our competitors are charging $25 to $50 per unit for those covered parking spots. So what we're going to do is we're going to take all those 150 covered parking spots, we're going to charge $25 per month. Now we want to multiply that by 12 months as well. And so what does that equate out to be? That's $45,000 per year that we've just added to the net operating income. Now let's take that $45,000 and divide that by a 5 cap, so 0.05. That equates out to $900,000 in value that we've just created. We didn't have to spend a single dollar. All we're doing is matching what the competitors are doing, and we've created almost $1 million in additional value. So let's take a step back and look at the total value creation that we just created from those 3 value add strategies. So first off, we have the covered parking, and that created over $900,000 of additional value. We also had the rental increase from the renovations, and that was over $9,068,000. And then we also had the unit conversions, so converting those 1-bedroom plus dens into 2-bedroom units. And that gave us an additional amount of value of $2,976,000. So when you take all those and you add them together, you're looking at over $12 million of value add creation from 3 value add strategies. So the beautiful thing is in real estate, if you understand how to increase NOI, you understand how to create wealth in real estate. And the beautiful thing about this is it's not just hoping for value, but it's engineering it.